Good afternoon, Don't Unfriend Me Nation. Matthew Spear from the Don't Unfriend Me podcast. Democrats, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when they come for you? Bad boys, bad boys. That's a whole nother episode. What are you going to do when the poll numbers don't look as good as they did 16 months ago for Joe Biden? What do you do when you're losing black voters, Hispanic voters, female voters? Why are they going to Donald Trump? You have set the stage on this wonderful play, this grandiose Chateau disaster tape of Donald Trump is A, B, C, D, and E, F, G, and you have laid a litany of evidence as to why he is the Antichrist, Adolf Hitler on steroids. But it seems that the narrative is failing. Why? Why is it failing? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it's the constant shift of the sky is falling. 15 seconds, I'll tell you what the latest ploy is so you can get ahead of it, and I'll be right back.
Do you want the truth? Are you tired of being so confused? You feel like you're more f***ed up than the lies on the evening news? Well, just step right in. We can talk about it all as friends. And if you want, we can hug and kiss and make up for the party ends. Agree or disagree.
Still Point, STIILPOINT, the Don't Unfriend Me band. Please give them a listen. They're awesome. They're over on iTunes. It must be a day that ends with Y. Democrats are shifting yet again, and they constantly do it. But now they're going to Ronald Reagan for help? Of all the presidents, of all the gin joints, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Ronald Reagan asked this question comparing to Carter, and he laid out just slide after slide, a little bit different than PowerPoint back then, but he walked through and he pled the case to America as why he was the choice for another 4 years, and compared it to Jimmy Carter's abortion of a presidency. Well, now we're seeing that this question that Democrats wouldn't have dared ask on March 12th of any year in Joe Biden's presidency because they knew the answer. They understood that it would tell a tale, a different tale. It would talk about the Abraham Accords and the peace in the Middle East. It would talk about USMCA and trade negotiations with Canada and Mexico, giving us finally, for once, a fair trade on imports and exports with those two countries. It saved us billions of dollars. He would have to talk about the job growth. He would have to talk about Donald Trump and every demographic from male, female, black, brown, white, doesn't matter, showed higher earnings than they previously had. Taxes were lower in 16 tax brackets. They would have to talk about the stock market, people's 401ks. They would have to talk about no wars, no conflicts, ISIS, Al-Qaeda defeated. Holy moly, we could just give you a list of all the things that Donald Trump did actually do. And it's always interesting to me when Democrats say the following: Donald Trump is responsible for the worst presidency ever. He was horrible. He destroyed the economy. He destroyed the country. He destroyed our relationships overseas, the Paris Accords, Iran nuclear deal, blah, 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 blah. But then you say, well, I thought you said he didn't do anything. That Donald Trump never proposed any legislation, that he never actually did anything. Oh, it's a different story of a different tune. But the Ronald Reagan, are you better off than 4 years ago? They couldn't have asked that question 2 days ago. And I was waiting for this. In fact, I talked about this on several shows, that once we annualized COVID, once the 14th of March hit, knew that they were going to do this. Because then when they asked the question and you rattle off all those things that I did, they could say, no. There was no toilet paper. People were all dying, truckloads full of bodies from COVID on ice. Don't you remember the forced vaccine from Donald Trump, the closing of businesses? And they can wipe their hands of it because they're Democrats. They don't have to actually own the fact that a lot of this legislation, and whether it was PIP loans or the lack of PPE for our nurses and our doctors, was all because the cabinets were bare under Biden and Obama. No, they don't have to own any of that because they get the narrative and simply get to ask the question, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? It's an interesting question. Watch this video if you don't believe me, because they've already shifted into high speed, full gear, full steam ahead.
News tonight, President Trump declaring the coronavirus a national emergency.
A national emergency. Two very big words.
The number of cases in the U.S. rising to near 2,000, at least 41 deaths, all schools closing in a growing number of states, millions of students impacted, houses of worship suspending services, landmarks, theme parks, sporting events, and concerts shutting down.
We don't want people to take a test if we feel that they shouldn't be doing it. 1.4 million tests on board next week. And 5 million within a month. I doubt we'll need anywhere near that.
The testing crisis, drive-through stations overflowing, President Trump vowing to boost testing and saying he takes no responsibility for widespread delays.
Dr. Fauci said earlier this week that the lag in testing was, in fact, a failing. Do you take responsibility for that?
Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all.
The chaos at grocery store lines where they stretch out the door, shelves cleared out.
At this New York grocery store, customers stood for 2 hours to check out. Aisles usually chock full of toilet paper, paper towels, cold medicine, even pasta, now lay bare with nothing left.
I showed up today and it's just chaos.
These guys are selling a lot of toilet paper. I don't know. There seems to, Tony, do you need to give some guidance that that toilet paper is not in protection against getting the coronavirus?
Hospitals bracing for a possible surge in patients, already reporting shortages of masks and protective clothing. Will there be enough beds?
You said that you don't take responsibility, but you did disband the White House pandemic office. The officials that worked in that office said that the White House lost valuable time because that office wasn't disbanded. What do you make of that?
Well, I just think it's a nasty question. Some of the doctors say it will wash through, it will flow through, in interesting terms, and very accurate. I think you're going to find in a number of weeks it's going to be a very accurate term.
Nervous, scared, confused, not really sure what's going on.
Or worse, it could get worse.
That was March 13th, 2020. One day. So how about it? You better off than you were 4 years ago?
News tonight, President Trump declaring the
clever.
coronavirus.
It's now March 15th. And you can ask me the question again. Am I better off than I was 4 years ago? 4 years ago, I think there was fear. I think a lot of people who had been expecting something like this to happen came to the realization that the unknown was truly just that. For the first time in most of our lives since World War II, or maybe even Vietnam for some, or other pivotal moments in history, we didn't know what tomorrow would bring. And whether it was the Cuban Missile Crisis or the Cold War, every generation has had to face this. And our generation faced it like a bunch of pussies. And with that fear and with that trepidation, it was stoked by places like CNN and MSNBC with their death toll tickers. They politicized this. There's no doubt Donald Trump handled things poorly at times, but let's remember the first 97 days that he was out there every single day at 4:30 till 6, 7 o'clock at night, answering questions, addressing the nation, putting people up on stage who could give us something in the know, or at least the best guess that wound up being mostly wrong. There were contradictions. There were flubs. There were things said that were not correct. But to sit there and say that Donald Trump was responsible for the people who died, and then on the other hand say that Joe Biden was responsible, is disingenuous. Was I better off 4 years ago? No. And that is the first time comparing and looking at today versus the annualization of time that Donald Trump was in office, I could say I wasn't better off. But that had nothing to do with Donald Trump. It had nothing to do with Joe Biden. It had everything to do with China, and we know this. But there was only one party that reacted a certain way. There was only one party that pushed for closing businesses after the first 14 days to flatten the curve. Remember? Because let's face it, Donald Trump did say that it would go through quickly, that it could possibly be over by summer. If he believed that, why would he shut it down for long periods of time? Well, we know the push that took place. It was the push by the unions and the teachers and the mass media that called for closing small businesses, that came up with stupid, silly rules that made no sense. Wear masks, don't wear masks, wear 2 masks. Wear an N95 mask. Wear a painter's mask. Wear a gaiter. No, don't wear a gaiter. Make sure when you walk in, you go ahead and walk at 3 feet sitting level, because if you walk at 6 feet, you have to have a mask on. But once you sit down, you can take it off. You can go ahead and social distance 6 feet, no 3 feet. You can get a haircut. You can't get a haircut. Go to the grocery store as long as it's a big box. Don't go to the local grocery store because that has more COVID than it would at Safeway or Kroger. You can't shop at the local hardware store, but you can go to Home Depot. Teachers, you don't have to show up. Let's go ahead and put our kids in front of computers 8 hours a day, have them sit down, gain 10 pounds on average, and go ahead and melt their brains because they're literally learning nothing. All they want to do is shut that thing off and get outside and play with their friends. The implications of the damage that was done to our children is extensive, and we're just finding out some of that now. But in the end, the World Health Organization goes ahead and says, well, you could go ahead and not take COVID as serious as you used to. It's just like the flu now, and somehow it's degraded to the flu, even though we know the vaccination didn't do what it was supposed to do, what we were told it was supposed to do. And if I list those things, my channel will get a strike. So I can't do that and share that information with you. Yes, absolutely, with no equivocation, I wasn't better off 4 years ago. Things seem to be getting a little bit better now. Twitter is a place that I can go to, and although I think it's a cesspool of information that's usually not accurate, at least I can say what I want without being banned. I can go out. I can spend time at my son's baseball game without being arrested. I can go to church and pray towards whatever God I want to without being arrested. Well, at least not yet. We can sit here and pretend that Donald Trump is responsible for all the things that happened posthumously from the 13th of March. Or we can realize who made it worse. So when you're asking yourself the question, am I better off than I was 4 years ago? That really isn't the question you should be focused on. The question is, where were you 7 years ago? Where were you 12 years ago? Where were you 30 years ago? And compare liberal policy to Republican policy and answer yourself the following question. Am I better for my business and my family, my way of life? And is the Constitution protected under one party versus the other? Do I feel that America is more prosperous than it was? Do I feel America is more respected than it was? Do I feel America's future is going the right way? And if you look at the polls and you look at the numbers, America is saying no, no matter how many times you want to hang COVID over one party's neck. It just doesn't stick. Folks, thanks for, it just doesn't jab. That would have been a better closing. Folks, thanks for watching the Dodo and Friendly Show. You can watch us tonight at 7 o'clock. It's Red Friday. Join us in-house. You can also go to thedumbshow.com. You can pick up some shirts, some hats, some coffee. Also read the news at thenews.thedumbshow. We would appreciate it. I will see you tonight at 7. God bless. Take care of each other. Good.
Adjusting transmitter output.
This is the Don't Unfriend Me Show with your hosts, Matt, Leroy, Amy, Olivia, and Mike. Geopolitics, military analysis, and election coverage. Coming to you live on the Spreely.tv network and all major social media channels at The Dumb Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. We can agree, we can disagree. Just don't unfriend me.